going to use the mic, but I think the acoustics are still pretty good in here. Hi, thanks for coming. Thesis defense for MFA in creative writing. It's great to be here and get to celebrate this moment with you. And I might decide not to use the mic. It sounds too nice with it, right?
Yeah, it's not cool.
Okay, so we'll just have to work the best we can with this. So the title of my thesis defense and the title of my thesis manuscript is All is Ripe for Fire. The title comes from a line from Grease DJ Pancake's short story, In the Dry. And it picks up with this theme that I think is set forth in the very first poem of the collection, The Unnamed. Just kind of read an excerpt from the working abstract for this collection so far. This is a lyrical meditation in 2 parts, and it captures the world of the unnamed speaker who is visited by images of a woman, such as the one who appears in the very first poem, The Unnamed. The poem opens with a specific invitation to the reader. Let us look at the French woman's hands touching the flame to her sleeve. And then no sooner do we get that image and the reader's attention is drawn to the woman, to her hand, the flame, her sleeve, and then the image of the woman is gone entirely. And the woman touching a match to her sleeve, throwing her head back, raising her legs, the living space, the house we do not enter. These are other images that are reoccurring throughout the collection of poems that continue to haunt the collection despite the apparent annihilation of the woman in the first poem. And this first poem, so this idea of setting oneself on fire that happens in The Unnamed became kind of an obsession, a major preoccupation of mine from the beginning of this series. And I had to ask myself, like, why? I know I have a morbid imagination, but I was preoccupied with this particular form of suicide. And I think part of that interest was in it as a metaphor, the passion that is presented in that image, the passion that we have for a lover, the passion we have for religion, like the passion of Christ, and the passion we have for our art, what we're willing to sacrifice for our discipline. So The Unnamed was derived from, as I went searching for inspiration and kind of like researching self-immolation, and I came across an article that was published in the BBC in 2011 called The Teacher Dies in France After Setting Herself on Fire. And it was a short article, but it stuck with me because of a lot of the imagery and the shock and the horror of the incident. The unnamed woman went to the Jean Moulin School on Thursday morning with a jerry can, gave a class at 9 a.m., and then, when the morning break came, walked to the center of the playground, poured petrol on herself, and set herself alight. One student witnessed, I saw her body on fire, walking forward with her hands on her head. Several people tried to put her out. She said, "No, leave me alone. I don't need help. God told me to do this." It was a human torch. I didn't believe my eyes. It seemed unreal. The students were screaming everywhere. And so you'll see, I'm going to read The Unnamed next, and you'll see hopefully some of these, the phrasing will echo with you that I called from this article. And in putting this presentation together, it struck me that this idea that students were screaming everywhere, this phrasing doesn't appear anywhere in The Unnamed. And I think that this is what the collection is trying, in some sense. There's several motifs, but I think this is one of the motifs that the collection is dealing with, the sense of childhood loss of innocence and the kind of horror and horror that we carry with us from the first frightening or disturbing thing we see, and we don't yet have the language to communicate it, or to know, to communicate our feelings. So putting these forward, I was hoping for some time for discussion, I'm horrible with timing. So just generate some ideas to think about during the performance tonight, and if there's time at the end for discussion, we can come back to this. But another thing, in considering the image of the woman on fire and suicide, and one of the processes I had to go through in these 3 years of writing was redemption and affirmation, and how to write a difficult and disturbing poem or story and have there be redemption in the end. And seeing this woman's death in the beginning as something that we all inherit if we read the article, if we read the poem, for the children that are there on the playground, what they'll carry forward with themselves, and how her presence permeates and gives new life and to something else to happen, gives life to a poem, per se. To honor the unnamed, we'll leave the screen blank for the rest of the presentation. The unnamed. Let us look at the French woman's hand, touching the flame to her sleeve, her whole body doused in gasoline, her physics set ablaze as children look amidst their play. A human torch, one exclaims, though hardly anyone is paying attention. Kareem remembers it, a vision, the apocalypse, total, unreal, a body on fire, going, her hands, her head. And feel free if you want to take pictures. There is going to be dance improvisations tonight, so if you'd like to take pictures at all during the reading, feel free to do so. Between waking and walking, the bird appears, throbbing in my temples, crawling into dark space. Cinders, lightning, broken wings, press my sensuality into seeds, call them children, bones, a small bullet. Screws and sparrow wing bones hang over a pause, wind-formed, instantaneous, diaphanous knot. In the streetlights, foreign bodies wonder, whose body is it? Do not walk straight. Leave your purple poesies at home. Now is the smile that unchains prisoners. Yes, the crowd says. In the middle of the crowd, in the middle of the crowd, the body is living space. A woman throwing her head back, the house we do not enter. My body has been missing since 1924, which is why I'm holding your hand now, which is why I am a stranger to the little girl I once was. A baby crawls into my lap. Goodbye, good riddance. Oh well, that is history. A prisoner with his eyes shut. Open your lips, the child is real. Tear the skin from your body, let go of the world, the dancing stardust we touch, the snakebite rock red that shadows us. Let the light burn holes in you. Listen, there are trumpets, running feet. Someone is calling, dear love, you must risk everything. Take me, a tortured eye, a dancing child, the dreams rumbling. Take me, I want to be free. Time is the borderland of ashes, too heavy and so thin. Time remains there, in prison. Perhaps you learned this as a child, in desperation, in a dream, half drunk. Bend one leg and point the toes. Creep back on the oily floor, and then the mud cracks and tadpoles turn into arabesques. From here, take my breasts in both hands and begin to move with me. This is a vulnerable poem. I am on fire, and my holes open up to both sides of memory. A tiny red rocking horse, long walks, a lost puppy. the bird appears, all bones and small screws. The next poem is connected to beings that perish. A good father is one rooted in the body, a few jerks, immortal things like never as good as, the only good, attempting to interpret penis as pen, milk with blood on leaves and bark. The question taken up in different ways. With what organ can females culture language? Chaos, silence, absence. Different means having only to be forced away, excludes possibilities for relations, break up, destroy, wants to destroy, open up bodies of language. She is, in other words, closer to the present, further from that center, slippery, shameful. Pleasure is located, alienated, structured by a sense of otherness. In calling women men, something must come from their bodies. Coins, chains, the unconscious. A site of transformation breaks down what her body feels like, is inevitable, jouissance, the end to authority, objective, objectifiable nonsense. Erase the slash, bring back the mother's body. Metaphor of white ink, breast milk, a reunion with what? Looks like something with rhythm and pulse, something one will always be conceived of by boys and girls into scotch taping the body that would start to fall apart. Erase the slashes, fall apart. The myth of woman as black hole, as whole, this whole, too many, could show the paralysis of what? The conscious mind, the body, born, like all functions of life, a desire for something. Free people who begin in the beginning. And so I want to take a moment to thank our dancers tonight, the UNLV Dancers. We have Charisse, Rachel, LJ or Lucinda, and Martin. So they'll be dancing throughout the evening. It's been a great opportunity to collaborate with them and with the direction of Margot Mink-Colbert. And it's been a great learning process too. I didn't realize how much I improvise until I had to work with others to improvise. I realized we needed to have some structure. Evidence of a diary. February 12th, 2000. Sucking whiskey from silver flasks, stealing aluminum lids from neighbors' trash cans, riding down the hills of Blue Slide Park. October 47, 1913. They say my name is an omen. They say knock on wood. They say bit of red, a bit of satin. The boy hears Satan. Red-centered ceterum. Asparagus growing in sparrow grass. September 7th, 1703. Only a sparrow stood between saving him and leaving. Only my grandmother's offer, her mouth a cup full of leaves. The next excerpt is illegible, primitive story. September 30th, 1839. This is the month my mother warned me about, the month of singeing wings on yellow light. This is the month half beating itself against the screen door, battering its wings against the white light, littering the porch, rusted, winged maggot bodies. April 20th, 2037. Girlhood rose upside down and backwards. Objects in the rearview mirror appeared distorted. Wearing white became a promise and a choice. October 5th, 2013. A female can reproduce without a male. This is proven of a shark in captivity. December 12th, 2014. His round hands, wounding hair, lips, rounding chest, fists, wounding hips, ribs. April 20th, 2037. Today we find fingers, starfish, bones, 2 sticks. July 14th, 1987. The animals know they are not separate. This does not stop them from killing one another. May 1st, 1924. We leave the world from the chest of wounded civilians, the way we come in. Oh, this next poem, if I can have volunteers. Yeah? Let's see. No, you can just stay where you're seated. Your hand up?
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me know. Do you understand your instructions?
Yes.
So, Claudia, you're volunteer 1?
Yes.
Is that what it says on the page? Because I didn't necessarily hand these out in order. Shannon, you're volunteer 2. Miley, you're volunteer 3. And Sean, you're volunteer 4. Okay. Point of progress. My body all over America goes on without its appendages.
My body.
I am not
all over America
contaminated.
goes on without its appendages.
Feel the comfort
I am
of
not
corrugated
Are now to death.
alluvial sometimes.
Corrugated
The shorter the
Whisper
distance,
nothing,
the
whisper
more
I
I
can't hear it.
whisper
Hold
name.
an axe in me and I love iridescent. I smolder, become
The
smoky.
mountains tell me I am combustible.
Water pools at the
My
base
body
of the
has never
mountain.
been appended.
My mother has lost sight of me.
Which side of my life?
My home grazes
My
Appalachia.
home enough.
My reflection keeps
Appalachia
silent,
doesn't
has
need
mothered me.
appendages.
Taught me the meaning of mirage. I find the comfort at the bottom of things. Curl my toes under like clouds. Hide rainbows in my arches. My mother was a boat. She talked to mountains when it rained. She collected tears in wooden buckets, transformed them into feathers, which upon closer inspection were little shed fingerprints. She clawed her buttons. Go tell it on the mountain. She went fishing with Jesus.
Jesus is in my mother.
My mother doesn't know how to shorten
Clouds
the
spread
distance.
shortly.
Between us is a
Harvest
desert,
over desert.
and iridescent oil slips.
She opens
You
her
go
mouth,
on,
sheaves of
go on and
your
drink it.
My
Touch
mother's
me to
pancreas
touch
slides
the distance. I'm
Her
grateful
dad
to
doesn't know that
it.
James is pancreas.
Only Jesus
And
and my
whisper,
fingerprint.
no more appendages.
My torso is blooming from
Clouds
inside the
and like
bucket.
fingers.
Jesus desires my pancreas. The clouds conceal my fingertips. They whisper no more appendages. Death doesn't know the name for pancreas. My mother's chest is flat as Kansas. She opens her mouth and reeks of iridescence. Harvest the oil slick at the base of her torso. Clouds spread across the aluminum. Jesus is in my mother festering. My pancreas burst the pores. Clear cut my appendages. This bucket contaminated fingertips. My mother can't survive with her appendages. She drove around the fourth chocolate. The shortest distance between her eyes and hers. I look at her and see my reflection in the shape of Jesus. Go tell it to her fingertips. Her rib cage is corrugated aluminum. Hold a match and she disintegrates. Appalachia doesn't need more appendages. My knees are made of aluminum. Jesus and my mother grow inside the flatness. My breasts have never been appendages. The mountains tell me I am combustible. The clouds appear closer than Jesus. Feel what it is to be corrugated. The shorter the distance, the more I disintegrate. I am closer now to death than I am to my mother.
I am not contaminated. Goes on with God's appendages. My body all over America.
Thank you. That was chaotic, but fun. So thank you. It's kind of what it's like to survive a poem. You end up with all these words in your head trying to figure out. But thank you for helping me give voice to America with this poem. Hearing all the different layers. Next poem, and, which is the symbol ampersand for and, which is repeated throughout the poem. Without this tissue, this endless ravaged space, you're ruined. And so I sealed the last great box labeled books and other art, and shipped it to the desert where I was going to produce nothing of us. Cross out, use. And I found myself thrusting my burning red backside at a man who no longer cherished me. And I loved him since before girlhood rose in the rearview mirror. Before he said he was married. And he said he still was, still is. And because she knew what he meant when he said how he existed, how he swung wildly against the edge of something and did not exist in the thing itself. And it became a metaphor for everything is terrible. And I remember the apple, and the woman, and the child-sized bug she carried on her head, and how she sat me in a chair, took the clock from the wall, and hid it. And the camera saw everything. The camera saw everything. The camera saw everything. And everything still. Just the intervening process. And her body falling. And inside the wooden box, she finds a wrinkled piece of paper listing all the names of all the precious pulverized stones made into the image on the lid, a white elephant. His memory whispers, I never got you anything. She traces the outline of her thoughts with her tongue. And he orders another one on the rocks, and another one on the rocks, and another one on the rocks. And in his absence, the lie she inherited from her mother comes in. And what was there to remember? I remember the camera and what the room said as he left her lying at a precise angle, unable to distinguish constellations, planets, stars, and his fingers, small stars, and I chant 1,000 names. Om Namo Soham. I am that. And I am nothing. I wander, stripped down, unlimited. A man and a woman. And yes, I did have sex with the entire football team. Thank you very much. And whether we live in a mansion or La La Land, we have all been oppressed. Oobla dee, oobla da. Na 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 na, life goes on. And to be with me, you must be ready to die. And even the animals know they are not separate. And only a sparrow stood between him and how I tried. And each word, red-centered, soft-hearted, best eaten with the hands. Illness enters the body through the mouth. And this is the month, and the trees are so full, and her mouth is a keyhole, and a bit of red enters the room, a key, a knife, a man, a woman, and this is the month of unbroken, the month of small places, and this is a floating heart, and a long way off, she hobbles. In the streetlight, children rumble, and a tiny bit of red on her lips, and someone a long way off calling, "Dear, you must risk everything." And she says, "I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong." And she hums. Little mirror and a swing. Warmth on my cheek. Next poem, a couple short poems. In a Dream. You guys don't mind if I comfortable read them? You feel they're getting a little bit much. I might want to start. I had requests for me to dance too, so can't promise anything, but. In a Dream. An old friend crosses the middle ground. She moves toward nothing. A bird perched on an anvil, saturated with evening blue. An echo in the arms of an old friend suggests the ocean, an oil spill, elbows, the edge of what is, deep impressions, and we didn't say. Michelle, can you help me do this one? A prayer for no one.
Why don't I dream of you?
Blossoms do not appear, nor does a leaf fall uninfluenced.
How can I tell the mother from the sun?
Take some bread and eat it.
Who can master this empty place I occupy?
The body of a woman on fire, something cut out by the sun, a boat full of saints.
Is there nothing left to burn?
There is a road and no town. One stands in woods. Adjacent lots. Yours, bird shadow, on a lattice crown, crooked fence. Mine, field of broken glass, glistening like an orphanage. A small truth. A small child holds a smaller child. The ocean knows this. A shadow against everything. An island not yet in existence. A vivisection. The shadow cannot remember its origin. It doesn't matter that you are suffering. You were loved as a child. And this is the last poem in this sequence for tonight. Fireflies, a study. Lesson 1. Bugs need air to breathe. Black and gold bodies perched on a twig, and a moment later airborne at dusk. Light on, light off, light soon to be kept magic in a mason jar, the tin lid of which my brother, sister, and I poked holes in. Lesson 2. Every creature carries a symptom of its own. In the streetlight shadows of dark, from lawn to lawn, through unpruned hedges, we crisscross the dead-end street, take refuge in neighbors' driveways. From stop sign to cul-de-sac, across the thick tar line marking the middle of the road, we chase the blinking gold. Black gold, black gold. Lesson 3. Pay attention to the bifurcation. Precociously, I cup my hands to mimic the complex wings. Preternaturally, I chase after it. Watch the feathery underwings, the insect stroking, the air stroking, the way I turn blind whiteness into angels. Lesson 4, ask questions. What was cut out of us by puberty? Why our ugly allegiance? Those early experiments, how my hands felt cold wings tickling a fine hair on my palms, how many twinkling bodies vibrating. Lesson 5, pretend to know the answer. The human depends on the bug for survival. We evolved as one. Lesson 6, look closely. A pinpoint. The butt end of the lightning bug, lamp iridae, firefly, coleoptera, winged beetle, uses bioluminescence to attract mates and prey. A cold light, lower abdomen yellow, green, pale red with wavelengths, light black shell and yellow striped wings. Not so different from the cucumber beetle that threatens the farmer. In some species, females are flightless. Lesson 7, ask more questions. Pretend to know the answer. How many lightning bugs? How many children? Altogether, we count 9. Our mother's voice, "It's getting late," punctuates our curiosity. It's getting late, 9 lightning bugs, blinking on off, in our jars. It's getting late, the insects blink. A symphony too subtle to be heard, too inhuman to sing, to touch. What pleasure could I have in it? There is no pleasure that I could have in it. I must possess the subtle old rhythm, oh, sublime. The song, on, off, on, off. I must master it, take control of it, of an emptiness, of a truth. I am my mother's child. Lesson number 8, sing and dance. Turn the experience into art. We call it a bioluminescence. We paint our cheeks, our chins, our noses with war paint. We have kissed the mouth of Iokanon, a bitter taste, the taste of blood. Nay, it was the taste of love. They say love hath a bitter taste. But what matter? What matter? We have kissed the mouth of Iokanon. We have kissed thy mouth. A ray of moonlight falls. It's getting late, our mother's voice. On, off, on. Our faces inked with bioluminescence, with our mother's almighty presence. Permission to stay a little longer. The residual evidence of our earlier experiments smeared, still glowing, on the unmoving cement slab. Lesson 9. Accept absolutely the light accumulated of worms of a truth. That's all you get from me in terms of dancing. Because I can't. It's impossible. Unless I memorize my poems. Of worms of a truth. It's getting late. Our jar, once full of gold, now eats away. There is nothing that shines alive in all of us. A residual bioluminescence, a smear, a smite, a ray streaked across my face. My mother, what matter? Surely not the bitter taste we call a mouth. How many flightlets smeared across? 9, 9, 9. It's getting late. It's getting late. 9, 9, 9. We gather our yellow in a jar. No breath, no matter. There is nothing we can't cut out. The residual moonlight falls, unmoving and emptiness, unmoving bitter mouth. It's getting late. The water, the earth, the air, all underfoot. There is no pleasure in it. The subtle, too subtle. To sing, to touch, the air, they say, we have kissed. Our war paint comes back in radiant reds and greens and yellow, unmoved, they say, subtle. A pinpoint cut out for survival. My mother underfoot. It's getting late. My hands collecting moments, stroking, stroking, stroking. Angels poke holes in whiteness. So I don't know how we're doing on time, but if people have questions, comments, I'd be happy to hear them or answer them. What time is it, Rachel?
7:43.
Oh, wow! I did pretty good on timing. So, well, thank you for coming. It was a great night. Was there a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
It just sort of occurred to me that to wonder whether you thought about ever having somebody doing sign language or American Sign Language while this
Huh.
is happening, if you do this again. Because I kept watching the dancers and wanting to interpret, even though I don't speak sign language or read it. I kept looking for something in the movement. It sort of resisted and would come in and come out of seeming to give me what I wanted in that way.
Huh.
I was just curious if that kind of interpretation was parallel version is anything that was in your mind at all when you thought of movement.
Yes and no. Yeah, and also to leave it to to let it be just a seed of inspiration for the dancers. That it wasn't, you know, the improv wasn't like so very, it wasn't necessarily like interpretive dance, right? Like it wasn't about symbolic necessarily, yeah. But there might be, and that's the part that's exciting is when they're, you know, whether it's almost like unconsciously when there seems to be that direct connection where the movement does seem to mirror or be a more like a direct relationship. Does that kind of answer it? And so that's interesting though, to do the sign language as, and to incorporate that as kind of another body dance.
Right.
That is really like straight in translation.
Yeah, like not instead of, but in addition to.
In addition to, yeah.
There were moments when you would say something that would appear to the dance a second later as if it wasn't, as if it was already coming. Or the dancers would do a movement and then you would say something that seemed to reflect on what they had already just done.
It's like what Yeats says, how can you know the dancer from the dance? So does the poem precede the dance? Does the dance inform the poem? It seems to be it's a completely third thing, like with the manuscript and the dancing. Can you talk about how you came to want to do this
With the dance?
with your manuscript?
The whole process?
Yeah, the whole process.
Well, I've been interested in like gestural language, body language. My professional life is in survey research, and so I just, you know, somewhere early on becoming fascinated with this idea of like only, you know, it's such a small percent, like I don't even think it's 40% of what we communicate is actually in the words, and how much of it is communicated through tone and pacing and other aspects. And so I was interested in exploring that with the body. And my background in somatic movement therapy also. And so, yeah, I like to be surprised. And so part of it is also work, I just like doing, and so that informed the decision to work with dancers. Because I knew I wanted to do a collaborative work, do something with other artists or scientists or work with other people in other disciplines. And dance just seemed a natural extension. And I think like there's some phrasing in the manuscript itself that kind of evokes a sense of dance and movement and even involuntary dance, like the dance of a body on fire, per se, or the chasing lightning bugs, just natural movement, and which is, I think when working with interpretive dance, you get some, you know, technique, and then you get the natural movement as well.
And did you read any poets
that influenced me?
Yeah.
Well, Williams, he was a big influence. Donna pointed me in the direction of Mercy Cunningham's relationship with Cage and the work that they had done. When I was in India, like a lot of the poets that I was able to connect with there had a background in dance. Like that was one of the things that I was looking for in connecting with the poets. And one was just by happenstance. I found out like after the fact that she also had a background in dance. So looking at how other like current artists are working with dance to complement their work, and
So you're going to
and Martha Graham. I did some research on Martha Graham as well.
Are you going to take it on
Maybe. Well, that's the next question. What am I doing after this, right?
Yeah.
So that is always an interest of mine. Whether it's, that was the other thing. The other reasoning before is I'm not a huge fan of readings, and so I'm always looking for ways to make them more interesting for me, and exploring dance, or that's one of the things that I came to poetry from fiction, because when I would read my fiction at reading events, it takes a very talented storyteller and fiction writer to find a piece that really works for a live audience, I think. And I didn't have that, and that's kind of what drove me to poetry, was how do I develop that? And poetry seemed to be a place that I could, explore, evoking, that sensation and movement and, dealing with space and landscape and time in a new way
In emotion.
and emotion, yeah.